So today, guys, we're going to talk about some tips for when you go exploring in Valheim. Now, these sorts of tips, I think there'll be something here for just about everyone, unless you have played this game like a lot, which a lot of people have, but hopefully at least something is useful for you. But if you think there's anything I've missed, do let us know down in the comments. And if you do find any sort of tip particularly useful, then let us know that in the comments as well, as it's always good to get feedback. If you're enjoying Valheim, guys, and you want to see more videos like this, please do consider liking and subscribing for more. It really is greatly appreciated. But let's jump into exploring tips. So I want to start by talking about if you're early game in Valheim and you haven't yet got to the stage where you've got portals. In that case, when you go off exploring, I recommend that you consider taking stuff with you in order to make a little bed and sleep through the night. The trouble is with nighttime is it is a very tough time in Valheim when you get all different sorts of mobs that are more difficult, and the game is just more difficult in general. And the trouble is dying sucks. So I recommend that if you're going to explore before you have portals, you do consider that at least, because you won't have the best like gear and food and that sort of thing. One thing that will help you out with this to ensure you need to take fewer materials with you is you could convert existing structures that you find in the game. So something like this in a black forest, or you might find the little villages and things like that. You'd only have to do some minor changes to these sorts of areas in order to get a bed and fireplace down and sleep for the night. So then you'll have to take less with you. As such, if you're out exploring before you do have a portal, I recommend that, particularly as it's turning nighttime, you make a little mental note of any of the locations that you find. And of course, you can always open up your map and double click to mark them with an icon. So before you go off exploring, one thing that is useful to do is have a portal ready as a spare portal. Now, if you only have the materials to make 2 portals, don't worry, because what you can do is this one right here is connected to another portal right now. So if you want to take materials with you to make a portal, you wouldn't be able to come back to this one. However, you can just change this to a new tag and just call it new, for example, and then take just one set of materials with you to make one portal while you're out and about. And when you go out and about and you place down that portal and title that new, you'll be able to come back here. Now, this just gives you an option if you're really far away, you know, if you've explored on the map and you're like up here somewhere and you want to just come home, then you can quickly get home in that manner. However, there are some other things you can consider, which is you might want to travel super light. And by that, I mean, don't take your best armor and your best weapons and tools and stuff like that. Treat it as more of a scouting mission where you can mark on the map anything you find of interest, and then you can just simply kill yourself to come back to your spawn point, which is marked on your map by a bed. So you set your spawn point by sleeping in a bed. So if I've slept in this bed, when I get up in the morning, I could go off exploring, and then when I'm at the point where I've had enough and I want to come home, I could simply kill myself. Now, of course, doing this means you will not be bringing back resources with you, but if your goal is simply to explore and mark out an area, then this is an option. However, if you are planning to explore and come back, then as I say, try to get yourself the portals set up. It's not that difficult to get enough materials for 2 portals. Bear in mind as well, if you have a smelter and a kiln, you could always just destroy one of these using your hammer to get the certain cores if you're low on those. I also did a video on my channel on how to get certain cores if you want that, and that'll mean that you can then teleport back. Now, the other thing to consider is when you're exploring, you might die, right? Like, it can happen, especially when you're exploring new biomes and things. So it's a good idea to have some chests near your portal and just put stuff in them, like backup armor, backup food is another good thing to have. Maybe even some meads, you know, depending, because obviously like stamina and things like that can run out. So definitely consider that, so that when you die, you simply come to your chest, get yourself restocked up, and then go back to your death point. Now, on your death point, if you die on a map, the death point will only last for 1 death. So what I mean by that is, let's say we got a death point like here, like this. This is our death point, for example, right? And we're trying to get back to there and we die. What will happen is our new death point, let's say we die here, our new death point goes there, and then this one gets deleted automatically, meaning if you haven't marked it, you won't know where it is. So when you've got a death point like this on the map, be sure to get your own little marker point and put it in there like that. Of course, the death point is a skull and bones when you get one naturally in game. I'm just showing you for example, but it's a really good idea to mark your death points out, particularly if you've gone with all of your good stuff on you, because it really sucks to lose that death point and lose all of your things. The other thing to say is research the biomes that you're looking for. So if you're very early game, really what you can be looking for are the Black Forest biomes. If you're starting to get to the point where you've defeated the Elder boss, then you're going to be looking at a swamp biome, and then after that you'll be things like plains and ashlands and whatever else. But research what you're likely to find there. All of the mobs do have weaknesses, and it is important that you know what they are to take with you the right sorts of weapons and tools and that sort of thing, and just being prepared in that manner is a really good tip. Now, this one will seem seem a little bit obvious potentially, but I want to mention it, and that is to mark everything on the map. And when I say everything, I mean everything, because you never know when you might need stuff. So you see here I marked out like where the copper deposits are, so I could go back to those later on in the game. I even mark where there's a good supply of raspberries and mushrooms and things like that on my map, because they do respawn and they are useful throughout the game. We've already covered the death point as well, but any sort of dungeon or something useful that you find is definitely worth marking. Now, another thing that is very useful to mark is your home point, because okay, this is where your home is right now, but if you intend on sleeping while you're gone, then this will disappear. So you can mark your little home point here like this, so you can get back. And then if you do sleep in another bed when you're like away here somewhere, you'll still have the home point and you'll know how to return. The other thing, and I'm going to cover sailing in a bit more detail in the future, but let's say you do sail over to this island over here. When I say the future, I mean this video, by the way. But let's say you come and rock up here and then you're going off exploring. When you disembark your boat, do leave a little dot there where your boat is, so you know how to get back to it. Many times I've sailed to an island, gone off exploring because I'm excited, and then gone, oh dang, I don't know where my boat is. And sometimes you can kind of see, like for example here, right? If I've got off on this island, I know my boat is in this stretch of land. But sometimes you go ahead and explore a lot of the, like, you know, coastline as well, and it's just hard to see. So just leave a little marker there so you know where to be going. Now, when you're exploring, stamina is everything, because you want to be sprinting around as much as you possibly can, right? And so having a good stamina bar and that sort of thing is really useful. So there are a few things we can do to give ourselves the best shot at that. First of all is get ourselves as rested as possible before we go. So we've got that extra rested buff, which can be done by improving the comfort of your environment through all different furniture things. I have a video on my channel which is a full guide on how to get the maximum level of comfort for different stages of the game that you might be at. So you can check that out if you really want to go to town on this. And I do recommend you considering it, because it'll just make your life a lot easier. The other thing is, if you've already defeated Eikthyr, then be sure to have your Eikthyr ability ready so you can activate that when you're on your travels. Again, that's going to give you that extra stamina and also health regen, which is useful to help you stop dying. But stamina is super useful when you are out and about. The other thing to say is obviously try and choose foods that have the best possible stamina. A reasonably sort of early to mid-game option for this is going to be the Queen's Jam. And then as you progress through the game, obviously you'll find all different types of food that you can have that'll do this for you. So make sure you take a good supply of food and try to prioritize the stamina, because you are going to be running around a lot. The other option for stamina is to use the cauldron to make up different types of meads, and stamina mead in particular. You've got the stamina mead right here, you can see there, and also even the tasty mead will give you extra stamina too. So definitely something worth considering there for that extra stamina. Now, we talked about portals briefly already. I said about make sure you've got a spare portal at the base, and remember what you've named it. The names are case sensitive, by the way, so you have to make sure they match up exactly when you make your new one. Now, what I'm going to do is just show you a little place where I've set up a base, or like a bit of a mini base, because this is what I recommend you do if you're looking to portal to a biome where you're going to be going back often. So this one here for me is going to be near a mountain biome, and you're going to find you're going to need to go back to this mountain biome a lot, because for me it was where I needed to do my motor fight. It's where I'm going to get a lot of silver, and it's where I can mine other resources found in the mountain biome, things like obsidian and stuff like that. So what I did is I actually found this hut, and then I just converted it and repaired it and stuff like that. But what's important is that you build this around the outside of your portal. This is to protect it from aggressive mobs, as they will come and destroy your portal. So you could, you know, like I've gone all this way, and you can see here, this is where I'm at from my base. It took me a little while to find this, but even so, like, this is reasonably close. You could go a lot further than this, and then you'll find that when you try to teleport back, your portal's been destroyed. So do protect it the whole way around and prevent that from happening. So you can see I've got a little portal set up here, and if I go to the map, I'll show you what we've got going on here. This is a bit of a swamp base, but it is in the Black Forest biome, which is a much safer biome, and by the time you're exploring the swamp, you'll be pretty used to Black Forests and pretty used to them and that sort of thing. And I said used to them twice, but we're going to carry on. And again, we make sure we protect this, but what this does is it just gives us a safe area here. Now again, make sure you always mark where you build your portals on the map, so you can always find them. But then what it means is, like, when I was exploring, I had to come out here on my boat, and again, we're going to talk about sailing in a second, but instead of just like crashing in my boat, landing in the swamp and going at it, I was able to come to the Black Forest, get myself set up with an exit strategy to get home, and then go and explore the Black Forest after that. And then of course, if I die, well, I can get back quickly at least and recover all of my things and all of that good stuff. So I recommend that you try to do that early game, because new biomes can be pretty difficult. And as I said earlier, it's always a good idea to sort of research the new biomes a little bit and just know the types of mobs and things you're going to come up against and how to fight against them. And as always, food is your best friend, as are good quality shields, and after that, obviously, good quality weapons and armors and tool tools, I should say, will also help you quite a lot. Okay, so I also want to talk a little bit about sailing just briefly. Now, I do have a full sailing guide on my channel, but I wanted to bring it up in today's video because sailing is obviously going to be a very important part of your exploration in Valheim. Now, the first thing to say is never ever make the raft, right? Like, this is really, like, unless you absolutely have to for some sort of reason, yeah, it's such a last resort. Just rush getting the bronze nails, and as soon as you do that, you'll be able to make yourself up a carve, which is going to look like this. This is much sturdier. It has some storage places in it as well. You get 4 storage slots in it, and it goes much faster as well relative to the raft. Then, of course, eventually you upgrade to this one, which is the long ship, and that has a ton of storage in it and goes a lot faster and has the durability and all of that sort of stuff. Now, you will have to be a bit aware of sea monsters when you're going out sailing, because you will encounter them from time to time, and they can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're early game, which for a lot of your exploring you're going to be, right? Because that's all part of how we develop and progress through Valheim. So I do have a full video on that on my channel as well to show you how to deal with those, but just to say, just really making you aware that they can be a thing. Now, one thing you can do when you're sailing is try and stay close to the shore at times, and then if you see a sea monster, you can hopefully get back to shore and escape it. But as you can see here, the islands can be like spread out a bit, and sooner or later you are going to have to make that daring trip. So again, you can watch my video if you want the full information on that. So when you're out on your boat, as I said, you can stay close to land as a bit of a defense against sea monsters, so that if you do bump into one, then you might be able to escape back to land. But be like aware of what land you are close to. So right here, the only thing that's around here is meadows. Now, on my mini map, when I open this up, if you hover your cursor over the land, in the top right it tells you. So this tells me this, for example, is a mountain biome, and then if I come out here, this is black forest, and then like where we are right now is meadows. And so if you're close to land, when you're in your boat, you better hover your cursor over to check. Now, the reason I say that is, first of all, if you're near a swamp biome and it's been nighttime recently, you can have wraiths that will spawn, and the wraiths will actually fly out to your boat and attack you and potentially kill you. So you definitely like want to be aware of that and not sail too close to swamps of a nighttime. And in general, obviously, you're going to try to avoid exploring at nighttime, but it's not always doable because obviously exploring takes a long time. The other thing to be very careful about are the plains biomes. The reason being is deaf skeetos will fly out to you and kill you, and particularly early game, they will kill you just about instantly, like a one-shot thing. But even in late game, they can get you in like 2 shots without too much difficulty. So again, you need to be really careful of that, because if you sail too close to the plains, they will kill you. So just be aware of that. Now, I did mention this before, but when you get to land, make sure you mark your ship's location. So this for me here, I know this is my ship's location, and I just like know that it's near Eikthyr and stuff. But if I'm going off to like a new area, you see I did it up here, I marked where my boat was, and we talked about this already, but I just wanted to mention again if you skipped on to this bit of the video. The other thing to do is to protect your ship a little bit once you land. So just make sure there's not loads of mobs nearby, because if there are like loads of gradings there and stuff and you just run off, the gradings will destroy your boat by the time you get back. It's also not a terrible idea to, when you get back, place down a workbench and repair your ship before you set off, because then if you do get attacked by a sea serpent, it just means that you're less likely to have your ship destroyed. And then obviously if you get stranded in the middle of the ocean, you will not have the stamina required to swim to shore, and you will die in the middle of the ocean, which really sucks. So hopefully today's tips helped you with exploring in Valheim. If you think I missed out any, do let us know down in the comments, and if you found anything particularly useful, then do let me know that as well. It's always good to get feedback from you guys. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and of course, here come the dad jokes. So I've actually been refusing to go exploring underground for months, but eventually I caved. You guys know what you call a lazy space explorer? A procrastinator. Do you know what the proper way to explore Italy is? You have to roam. I remember going camping with my arch nemesis once, and it was just us two there alone in the tent. To be honest with you, it was too intense.